All right, everybody. Hello. Welcome back to the Wireheads podcast. This is episode 24. That's a weird number. When I was starting today with Diamond, I was like, wait a minute. What do you mean it's already 24? This is kind of blowing my mind. So, hello, everybody. For those of you who are new here, my name is Emmerron. I am a professional GM as well as the runner of Neon Inferno, which is a stream we do here Monday nights at 7:30 Pacific time. We have a fantastic show over there. The cast is awesome. A few of them are even in chat right now. But yeah, my goal in this is to teach everybody things, make sure you're aware of the crazy things that can happen as a GM, and just share some of the crazy ass stories. Joining me, of course, as always, is my co-host.
Hello, I'm Diamond Dust. I'm also a streamer over on Twitch, where I do Cyberpunk Red on Wednesday nights, and I'm also a professional GM over at StartPlaying. Also, of course, as always, if you want to go check out the first half of this episode, go check out the link at the top of the description.
Yep, down in the description. That's one of the first things we post is the description of the episode that you're watching, and then a link to the part that you are not currently watching. Of course, as I've said before, you're on Spotify, or if you watch this live with us on Twitch, it is available on both of our streams, or in the case of Spotify, it is all one collected whole that I put together with my recordings each week. So, that said, let's talk about our topic for this one. So, part one, for those of you who are coming to my YouTube channel to watch this, over on Diamond's side of things, oh my god, things are happening. Another 1-bit hype chest. Oh man, sorry guys. This is one of the few things of doing it here on Twitch is sometimes things happen. I need to thank people. So let's talk about what we talked about in part one of this episode, which is over on Diamond's channel if you're watching this on YouTube. Part one, we talked about execs, lawmen, how they fit into the narrative whole of Cyberpunk Red, and how you can do better at running for those as a GM, and giving some stories and some logic to how they could work. You all are going to keep doing this to me, aren't you? So part two, the part we're about to jump into here, is a discussion of some of the crazy, unhinged, straight batshit stuff that has happened at our tables, and some of the stories around it. So Diamond, I'm going to just ask you to take us away on this, because you're giving me every indication you've got a very specific story in mind. So I'm kind of curious to hear what you got.
Well, I was deciding between either the rocket cock incident or help. I might be marrying my estranged father. So I think we're going to start off with the marriage investigation. This was more because I had a media in the party.
Yep.
The fixer reaches out to the party in regards to a $500 job, a little extra play money to take to night market. And the party thought, great, how hard could this be? So they go up to Watson Development, where they meet Mary. Mary is this sweet, young, up-and-coming trauma team executive. She's a good doctor. But Mary recently has been dating this gentleman. And, after taking some time to actually look at some of the photos, she's got it in her head that this guy looks a little too similar to her to figure out, if, this is... She's thinking, is this my dad? Because my dad's been missing for a while, and this guy looks like he's old enough to be my dad. Because there's an age gap. I poke a little fun at age gaps in this one. Not that there's anything wrong with a little age gap, but this one, she's 20, he's 53. But the problem is, he looks a little too close.
Yeah.
So, she hires the party $500 to figure out, in the case of Greg, Greg is simply he simply is this edge runner that he's not quite as far up the chain in like reputation, but also really hasn't even landed a cool handle yet. So tracking this guy down, figuring out that, and also they had to figure out if these two were related. They had a med tech in the party, and they were like, okay, all we gotta do is get a sample from this guy, we get a sample from her, we do a little DNA test. Great! The hitch, though. Greg got hired to do a hit on the med tech. This is something that I had planned for a while because the med tech had things coming. So these guys are just following tracks, and it takes them off to a fixer that Greg goes through a lot. They go to a guy named Lowball. Lowball, he works for Continental Brand. He does stuff for Continental Brands. And this party recently fucked with Continental Brands in a way that they shouldn't have. Continental Brands got upset, and they went to Lowball. Lowball got the party, or got together a group, and Lowball said, "No, I don't know who this you're talking about." And until basically the Solo convinced Lowball to make his memory work. It's like, yeah, no, I saw him recently. I sent him out on a job. Not realizing that the guy that Continental Brands wanted to hit is sitting in his office. So these guys also decide to follow up and find Mary's mother. And she doesn't even recall, sleeping with a guy named Greg. She doesn't even remember, any of her, past flings being that. But slept with a guy named George. So they're going out. They finally get to a point where they run into Greg and Greg's crew, and they get into a fight, full on realizing they can't kill Greg. Greg is trying to kill the medtech, but if they kill Greg and Greg turns out to not be Mary's father, then everything's fine, everything's good, except Greg's gonna need a little bit of a patch up before the wedding. However, if they kill Greg, like the job is out the window. So everything's going fine. The fight's going well. And then the Solo tarot crits on Greg.
Oh no.
And we were hoping that we go. And I gotta look up which card it was here. Oh gosh, I remember the image, but I don't remember. Oh, the Hermit. Both of Greg's eyes come out, like gone, fucking ruining him, and the damage was enough to put him at 0, rolling death saves.
Mm-hmm.
And, as death saves go, Greg rolls a 10.
Instant failure.
They get the sample from Greg. It turns out Greg is not Mary's father. Greg is actually Mary's estranged uncle. So, I mean, at the end of the day, the party kind of looked at this. It was just like, well, fuck. What do we do? So they go back to Mary. And, well, they explain the situation. They explain what comes up. They don't get paid because they did not complete the job at hand. And now Trauma Team is after them because they killed one of Trauma Team's execs and best doctors. That's kind of where that party is right now.
Oh boy. So, the story I have for you all is a story that goes back to my very early days of running Cyberpunk before I did it professionally. Before I did it even live on stream. This goes all the way back to when I was running my first ever campaign for the game out of the Jumpstart kit, meaning we had heavily homebrewed rules around progression and things like that. And a lot of shit I did was like very just like, yep, that's how it works, you know, because like we didn't know. So we just kind of had to take guesses. So the thing you have to understand, my wife is not a big RPG aficionado. She doesn't really like the genre all that much. Tabletop RPGs, not a big fan of hers. But she said yes during, you know, when we were starting to play this during the pandemic. It's a way to play with all of our friends and like get together online, and gives us an excuse to all hang out on a given night every week. So we would do that. And one of my wife's best friends is someone that I have known for quite a while along with her. Like I met her at the same time as my wife did. And I started telling her about Cyberpunk, and she's like, well, I used to play D&D, like old D&D, first and second edition D&D with my dad, uncle, and like a bunch of them when I was a kid. And I'm like, all right, well then like we'll get you into Cyberpunk. Sounds good. So this leads to two stories that I would like to share with all of you today. So the first happens the very first time I get her playing the game. And so what we do is, it was like on the couch behind me here. We had my wife, her, this is Erica, who was in Neon Inferno Season 1. And then my friend Robert, who was with us at Gen Con. And the three of them have a gig Robert actually wasn't here. It was just my wife and Erica. So my wife and Erica get a job. My wife is playing a solo who is a former, I think he was a middle manager at Biotechnica. And got ousted because he slept with the wrong people. And Erica was playing what role was she in this first run? She wasn't a netrunner yet. I think she was a rocker boy, I think. Because she was playing off being an exotic dancer, shall we say. But she invested in subdermal armor. So she was like very, very like careful about that. I'm like, so this is where Style Over Substance hits, right? Where you're like, okay, cool. You want to play being someone who's undressed half the time? Totally fine. Subdermal armor will make sure you're protected. Awesome. So we just do that. And so their gig is to break into this hotel where an Arasaka exec is staying and get some information from him and kill him, basically. And they do great at getting all the way in. And even like, basically, this is Erica's first exposure to me running anything as a GM. And I'm like, yeah, so you two walk in and, you know, this guy is having his fun with like another girl that he's brought up to the room, whatever. So the guy is without his armor, which is fine by their standards, makes it even easier what they need to do. They get into a firefight with this guy in his hotel room after getting the girl to like get the fuck out of there. And then they have to like tell this woman like, either, you know, you stay quiet or we come for you next. And you saw what we just did to him. And in the doing of this, they've convinced all the bodyguards that were originally stationed outside the door. There are donuts downstairs. They rolled a 30, by the way, on the check to persuade them to do this. Okay. So at 30, they tell the guys, yeah, there are donuts downstairs. They said everyone could have one. Boss even said like, you know, you guys could take a quick break to go do that. So they clear the hallway. So at this point, they just take the fire escape, get the fuck out of there, and drive on off into the night. And this is where the story gets unhinged, because that's just standard Cyberpunk, but Erica's having a great time. And so she decides to take it upon herself to fuck with my wife's character, who's this middle-aged former middle manager. She's playing a dude in the game. And so this leads to Erica's character trying to steal from him and just fuck with him at every turn for the rest of the campaign. And so the two of them become kind of like, they become like not a romantic pair, but they become like one of those comedy pairs, right? Where like everything they do is just a little ridiculous. Everything they do is funny as fuck. And eventually it leads us to a brothel called the Pink Demon at the edge of the city. And and I'm recounting this and I'm like, this was so ridiculous. So they were on the trail of some exec that they had to hunt down. I don't remember what all the details were, but basically they got word like he had stopped here. And so Emily, of course, my wife is like, well, I know that place. I used to go there all the time. Cue what will later be referred to as daddy-daughter brothel time, and not in the way that you think.
Oh my God.
This is what it becomes referred to as by the rest of the group, even to today. Because Erica's character was like in her 20s. Emily's character was in his like 50s or 60s. Like big ass age gap. But of course, he's a sleazy guy who will, he'll fuck anything if it suits him, right? So they go there and he's like, I know this place. We'll get intel. And so the two of them go into a room with one of the women there to get her story. And it just turns into like just debauchery basically before the session's out. And I'm like, this is this thing that I would never do on a live game. Never do it for Start Playing. And because this was like my first time with like a bunch of my friends, and I DM'd a bunch of D&D in the day, so like I wasn't unfamiliar with it, but man, oh man, this got unhinged fast. So yeah, that is the first of my stories concerning that group. The second also involves the two of them. Same campaign. Their gig, I think this actually came off of the Pink Demon visit, as now that I'm thinking back through it. So the exec they're hunting is one of the heads of Biotechnica in the city. And so they get the intel like, okay, yeah, the guy has what you need up in the security office at the top of the building. So the two of them, again, this is a session where it was just the two of them because everyone else couldn't play that week or wasn't feeling good or whatever. So we go to the top of Biotechnica. On our way there, though, we encounter a research lab on one of the middle floors of the building. And in this research lab, I'm like, I'm going to pull at their heartstrings. I'm going to be an asshole, basically, in GM terms. I am going to present them with a bunch of lab animals on this level, right? All these lab animals are going to be part of an experimental group testing vocal chips, Vox implants that translate things to human speech so that they can be understood. And not all of them have it. Some of them have other cybernetic enhancements that are being tested. But the thing I'm going to present them both with, knowing that they're both dog lovers, because this is the way my twisted mind works, they come in and they look around them and I'm like, there are some big animals in here. Like we're talking like cats of prey and stuff like that. So this one dog is in a crate looking up at them. And in like my best computer monotone, I give them friend, danger, help. And they're like, what? Friend, danger, help. And I tell them, he's looking past you at a window at the back of the lab. And inside, you see a similar mutt on a table surrounded by people in full like hazmat lab wear. And they appear to be preparing several syringes. So what does my crew do? I throw this in there as a non sequitur. This had nothing to do with their gig, right? This was done so I could be an asshole to my wife and our friend.
Oh my goodness.
What do? They break into the lab. They flood it with sleeping gas, which is on just in case, they need to stop one of these big animals. Because it makes sense that they would have that, right? An emergency shutoff. So they get all these lab techs to go to sleep while the two of them hoist this dog off the operating table unharmed. And they bring them back into the lab. And I was like, yeah, you see the dog wagging its tail and just in through its vocoder, you just hear friend, 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 as it's wagging its tail, seeing that the other dog's okay. And the two of them were like, this is so good. And Erica comes up with the genius idea, inspired idea. She's like, you know what? I'm going to teach him something. And so they spend a few minutes where she's like, all right, guys. So as we all know, these are corpos. And everyone with a vocoder in there, corpo. Yes, corpos. Okay. Corpos are bad people. Corpos bad. Do you know what we say to the bad corpos? Fuck corpos. And so this huge robotic wall basically now is fuck corpos. Fuck corpos. Okay, now hold on to that. We'll be back in just a bit. So they complete their climb up to the top of the building, deal with the security head, steal the shit they need to steal. Then they come back to the lab. They let all of these animals out and parade them down the stairwell past all the bewildered execs on the lower floors as this parade of talking animals is saying, fuck corpos, fuck corpos. And lead them out to a waiting convoy of cars that they've arranged for now. Because they've got like probably like 5 or 6 dozen animals here of all different sizes doing this shit. So yeah. And they were taken to like a nomad animal sanctuary at the edge of the city to be kept and maybe rehoused if they could stand to rehouse them. But yeah, that's how that all, and this is all before the core rulebook even came out. All that shit happened before I even knew what the rules to the game I was playing truly were. It was all guessing and agreement between the players and me like, yeah, that makes sense. That's how that'd work. Purperjack sounds like a movie idea. The Herd Locker. Yes, exactly. You get it. You get it. Oh my god.
So, Roy Rocket Cock the Rocker Boy.
Oh, this is a good one.
It took place during Cybernation Uncensored series Cyberpunk Shanghai. So we got Vulpes Vox playing as, the attack who has a, knack for coming up with some very strange things while on synth coke as a very certain Rue. And then we have Roy. Both of these guys decide to introduce the rest of the party, just like, hey guys, you want to try synth coke for the first time? One of the new solos, Zara playing as Chester, but apparently the moon is haunted. Which, I didn't find out till later in Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker. It somehow came full circle there. But these guys, they're well into it. They are lost in the fucking sauce on pure cocaine, and the finest alcohol that their pockets could buy at that time. Because it's a short trip to Shanghai being, funded by Interpol. A little bit. And finally, Roy, just near the end of the session, just kind of looks over, just like, guys, you know what I want? I want a giant golden rocket cock. We all look towards Roy's camera. And it's like, and the tech in question is like, I'm in! Let's do it! I'm like, oh no. Oh no. So, over the next couple weeks, while they're here in Shanghai, Vulpes puts together a tech upgraded Mr. Stud that has a grenade launcher feature to it. It does 66 damage to a singular target via the grenade launcher table. However, you gotta go pick it back up to go reload it. And, well, Roy gained a reputation for doing... like, the first time Roy took an aim shot with this thing, went for the head, critical injury, crushed windpipe. Now, to understand, this golden Goliath just comes flying through the air right towards this triad member, mouth open. Boom. And that's how we imagined the crushed windpipe happening. I thought, oh, that's funny. It's all well and good. It gets better. So it's the final standoff of Cyberpunk Shanghai. They are stopping this absolute Jim Carrey wannabe. Yes, Cyberpunk Shanghai was this like unhinged car wreck of an adventure that happened over the summer due to some college scheduling with Jim. So, the helicopter started to take off with this guy who has dubbed himself The Mask. He's this Jim Carrey wannabe, but also likes to impersonate other comedians while he's doing really heinous shit. He's like this really this one offshoot of the Bozos that's not so much clowns, but comics. So Roy's just like, hold on, I got this, and he comes up to the ledge of the hotel that they're fighting on top of, unzips his trousers, and just yells "rocket cock," fires this, and I'm just like, okay, I don't know if you're gonna be able to nail this. Critically injures the helicopter. The helicopter had already taken a bit of a beating. I'm like, okay, all right, think it would survive it. No, it did not. There was a lot of 4s, 5s, and 2 6s. And I'm like, you know what? Fine. It's like, not only does it hit the helicopter, it goes through the windshield, but fucking blowing this poor pilot's head apart, sending this helicopter spiraling down into the street. And we were getting to the end of the campaign, and Roy, it's just like, Roy's like, guys, there's a problem. What? Me golden member, it's gone. Yes, there was a lot of gold member references throughout this campaign. And they go down there, and sure enough, wedged right in the ear of this pilot is Roy's golden boy. And I think, okay, that's all well and good, we're good. And then Team Storm Chaser rolls around.
And he's back.
Because Roy is trying to take over Maelstrom. Literally, it was like one of the first few episodes in, dealing with, I think it was dealing with Ripper. Roy's just like, you know what, hey, because Ripper is responsible for taking Roy's original eyes out. He's like, hey, Ripper, try to take this, and fucking tarot crits. I think he tarot crit Ripper
in the head.
Actually, I think it was a headshot. Fucking, I don't know if it was cracked skull. I don't remember, but it was, once again, it made sense. Where was it? Lost Eye, and it made sense, and it was just weird. Roy, I've never met anyone that was so accurate with heavy weapons like Roy, that he could land aimed shots with a single shot weapon such as this. And to this day, everybody's like, well, what is it? It's an exotic grenade launcher that counts as external cyberware. Mm-hmm. It takes up an option slot. it can't be concealed, but it will go off on metal detectors. And in order to reload it, you have to go get it. Also, in the process, Roy had acquired a couple other specialty Mr. Studs. One of them being called gonorrhea. A flamethrower. Puts incendiary shotgun shells in there. And I still remember, it's just like, hey, welcome to Cyberpunk Red, where you don't own anything, but you still pay for it anyway. And in the midst, it's like, yeah, and Diamond gave me gonorrhea. And I'm like, no! The last one was called Spider-Man, where they took the insides of an arachnid grenade. And it's probably the most morbid of the bunch. And you can probably figure what this thing does. I'm just like, all right, this one stays behind the screen a little bit. All right, yeah. I'm fine with the golden missile. This one gets a little too weird for my liking.
Yeah, that gets a little weird, but I mean, it's
funny.
Storm
Chaser was comic.
Yeah, Roy's reputation for having that thing was like, I only knew about the golden attachment. I actually wasn't familiar with the others, and that's hilarious.
Apparently there was going to be a stun baton one that Volpus was cooking up. And like, all right, guys, please.
There's a line. We do have to stream this on Twitch.
I don't know we streamed it on Twitch. I never got any heat for it, but it's just like, I don't know where the line is. I'm pretty sure we passed it. Let's keep going.
Yeah, so the one other slightly unhinged story, or no, I got two. I've actually got two. And these were two separate campaigns. So both of them involve my wife. It's funny how that works, right? All my unhinged stories.
Wife?
Huh?
What's up with Everwife causing all the unhinged things to happen?
Oh, because she's unhinged. That's why. She just doesn't play that often, but when she does, she's unhinged. Because here's the thing. My wife, I love her. Her first response in an RPG is, all right, someone give me a damn good reason not to. If you don't, I'm shooting everybody in the room. That is what I am doing. And most of the time, this was because she got tired very easily. She'd have been out working during the pandemic. She still worked in an office. So like she couldn't, like I was working from home. So I had much more energy than she did usually, because we'd play later in the evening because everyone needed to get home from work first. So she did this to avoid that problem. Like, if I created a standoffish character whose main response to problems is just shooting at them, makes this easier. That said, there were times where my wife came in rare form. And one of those involved a couple of missions that kind of strung together. So the party had worked together on a few gigs for an exec who went by the handle Swan. And Swan was one of those that was very meet me in the back of a club, we'll talk biz, you go do my dirty work and report back to me when it's done. So there comes a point where the crew's investigating a club, and the club is high up in the Glen, right? And they're getting these weird looks from all the patrons in there. It makes them feel like they're not welcome. And the atmosphere was very different than most Glen clubs would be. So eventually they moved to go down the stairs because they were doing a wellness check on the guy who's supposed to own the club, who's nowhere to be seen. The moment they start going down there, people start to stand up, in synchronicity. They've just got to stand up. And everyone in the party's looking at each other what the fuck is going on? And one of them tries to threaten one of these patrons. Patron lunges at them. Fun fact, they're all under the effects of a Biotechnica bioengineered nightmare cordyceps variant. Yeah! So they're all zombies, effectively. Born to the whims of the mushrooms. Eventually, the party deals with all of them. None of them have been infected, right? So they go downstairs. And I think one person on our whole crew had the foresight to have air breathing enabled via nasofilters or an air mask. So this is the story about how I traumatized my entire party from this point forward to using nasal filters and breathing masks. Because what happens is they walk into the room and I have everyone every few minutes roll me a resist drugs torture check. And my brother passes all of them. I think it was Cody was the guy on our party that had a breathing apparatus. And then, him and Robert both had breathing apparatuses. So this leads to my wife and Erica going in, and the guy that they were there to find is plugged into his computer via a neuroport and is like trapped on the net. And I think at this point, Erica was playing a netrunner. So she jacks in to try and get the guy out of it. And manages to do so to a point, but he says, my brain is fried. Like, I've been in this room for the last, I don't know how many days at this point, breathing this stuff. It's toxic. Get out while you can. And it's only then that they realize what's going on. So they're freaking out. And they take a sample of this, have it analyzed, and pretty soon the guy they were working for, the fixer they're working for, is like, yeah, so I'm sorry. And then pulls out flamethrowers. They fight and kill the guy. And then they're like, okay, well, like the only real treatment for this was on the convoy with those spores that this guy was growing. So they track that back to the Voodoo Boys. And the Voodoo Boys say, all right, here's the deal. You want the antidote that we just so happen to have? Because they found out like that's where they bought the spores from. Cool, we have it. We'll give it to you. But you need to bring us this exec first. And my wife says, in no uncertain terms, consider it done. She's playing a fixer at this point. So I'm like, okay, my wife is invested in this. Let's go. So they come up with a scheme to get the exec and her bodyguard separated because the exec trusts my wife. First mistake. Never trust her. So she gets into a car with her where the exec is held at gunpoint and trauma team starts coming because she's been injured badly enough that now like that's on the table. And my wife threatens her successfully to telling them, it's fine, it's probably just a glitch, this has happened before. Calls off trauma team. And then they drive to the Voodoo Boys hideout. And the Voodoo Boys take this woman from my wife and they make her watch the consequences of what she's brought upon them. They behead her in front of her. My wife's reaction to this is to just clap. It's like, that was beautifully done. And I'm like,
oh,
what is happening? Like, this is not, my wife doesn't get involved with roleplay. My wife doesn't like go off and do these sorts of side quests. When did she do this? Like, so this is the first of those stories. She got the antidote by selling out the person she'd been working for like months at this point. The second is we go to a campaign where The crew eventually finds out a rogue AI on board the Crystal Palace is trying to do some really fucky shit. They're not sure who's calling it. They never really found out. That said, the control center for the link that this AI is using is in a Militech rented headquarters on board the Crystal Palace. So they get up to the Crystal Palace through a whole campaign's worth of events that I won't go into detail here. And they start fighting. Some of them smuggled their guns up to the Crystal Palace, which for any of you who know about cyberpunk space travel, big no-no. No one takes firearms into space for good reason, as we're gonna learn, okay? So some of them managed to smuggle them up despite this. And so they get to this control room. They deal with some drones, some private security, and then eventually one of them gets the bright idea to pull out their gun. And they shoot. And the first shot hits the intended target. And everything's like, oh, great. Yeah, we just pull the guns out. This will be much easier. They've just got stun batons. What are they going to do to us? They miss the second shot. And so now I roll on a table that I've created specifically for this environment to see if it hits anything that could compromise the pressure bulkhead. This first shot does not. It damages the bulkhead a little bit though. Like it just damages the general structure of the room, which is already like, that's dangerous, right? The second time this happens, there is a hole the size of a dime that gets opened in one of the windows. Out into space, pure vacuum. So the whole room starts getting sucked towards this dime-sized hole. And there's pillars and stuff that they can grab onto that like allows them to avoid this. And it's an athletics save for them to do that. So a few of them, you know, like on the first round, they make their athletics checks. Second round, they get another set, and I think it was like one more person need to make an athletics check here to like save themselves other than my wife. My wife fails both of these. I'm like, all right, you have one more chance to grab yourself on the way out. Fails that one. And I say, okay, what are your last words? And she says, shit. And I'm like, yep. And then the rest of you see her body just implode against this tiny hole. Thankfully, it seals it for now. Unfortunately, it won't be doing that for very long. But yeah, that is the second story about how my party decided to resolve the problem. And later on, they did not keep that window sealed. Eventually, my brother, who's still part of this game at this point, makes the choice to just shoot at another window so that it can suck the competition out. And then we got to use the very rarely, I would only imagine, used suffocating in a vacuum rules, which are in the core rulebook. My brother and one of the other members of the party nearly died of oxygen starvation to their brains on the way out. They survived though. On an escape pod. They got out. It was great. So yeah, my funny stories are a little more violent, but they involve my party doing some just utterly unhinged shit that I'm like, I did not come totally prepared for this. I'm so sorry. What the fuck?
I suppose one other slightly amusing thing that more I discovered at my table is with the same exec that I had mentioned from the first half of the episode. Pitch, name of the exec, her operative Isaiah has somehow become seems to become the party's favorite. Like, if anything happens to Isaiah, the party is going to go on a fucking rampage. Like this is the dog in John Wick. All it takes is me killing Isaiah, and I'm going to send this entire party over the edge. So GMs, just keep an eye out for that. Now, in the matter of one last story for me, I would maybe if this episode was a week later, because apparently this weekend I have to plan boys' night out because the most of the women in the party are gone, and the one tomboy is going with these guys. I don't know what kind of trouble they're about to go and get into, but I can tell you this: one of the other favorites that I had that came from this involved the Vendit heist from Emmerron. Problem is they pissed off the Vendit in the midst of all this. So not only are they dealing with Maelstrom, who they've pissed off, they're also dealing with one pissed off Vendit, and they are in between both of these.
Diamond, if you could explain to the unknowing listeners, how does one piss off a Vendit? They don't have, like, they're not Brendan from 2077. That's novel tech. So, Diamond, please explain to our uninitiated listeners, how does one piss off a Vendit?
Oh, I was gonna let them see what happens, but you know, I guess a word from the wiser edge runners here to you new punks: if your item gets stuck in the vending machine, don't shake it, don't punch it, don't yell at it. Because those bitches have maybe flamethrowers on them, SMGs on them, shotguns on them, mainly flamethrowers, and they will kill you. The Vendits are self-sufficient. They will fix their problems. You let them work it out, and everything will be fine. You might even get a free thing out of it, because, like, you know, that happened with me once. You know, my fucking bag of kibble got stuck in the Vendit, so it spit out another one, so I got 2 free bags of kibble for delivery guarantee. So not only did like a loose bullet strike the Vendit, they are fighting Maelstrom, and they don't realize that the Vendit's hostile, and the poor rocker boy in that group got toasted by the flamethrower.
Oh,
it's just
no.
Like, whoops. Whoopsie daisies. So yeah, Emmerron, Vendit heist, lethal.
Can be if you're not careful. There's a lot. That's the thing I think people don't realize. And those of you who haven't read it or want to run it at your table, it's still available. If you go to my How to GM series, I think I have it linked on both episodes 2 and 3, because I actually went through and showed you guys how I write gigs, and that was my example gig. And I think it's fun. I think it's a fun little intro to the world of Cyberpunk, and you could run it with like a table of totally new people, and they'll have fun with it. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff in that gig that can go very wrong if the party doesn't understand what they're dealing with, or make the checks appropriate to discover those things. Because, like, yeah, the Maelstrom they can be talked to. You can literally just talk to the Maelstrom guys. They're not interested in fucking up the party out of turn. They just are mad they don't get their special coffee that was in the same Vendit last week. That's all. Like, they're very normal for the most part here. They're just a little more chromed than your average citizen. That's so good.
The party got frustrated trying to negotiate with Maelstrom. So
oh,
it's
God.
like I shoot him. And it's like, oh, okay, alrighty then. And then I suppose in the midst of all that, I guess what are some weird, like, I guess like weird little things that have happened. Oh, stickball. One time I was running a stickball match, and I put a Vendit in the middle of the stickball area. Yeah, the Vendit got, somebody tossed one of the balls that bounced off the Vendit, and so yeah, new obstacle added to the field.
Now there's a flamethrower. Every time you pass by, this thing's trying to torch you.
What about you? Have you had any weird occurrences like that you've put in front of your players by chance?
See, the thing is, I don't use a ton of mini games at my table, because a lot of the games I've played since a lot of those minigame DLCs were published have been on Twitch. So you all have seen most of them. So I'm trying to think if there's any other like really funny little doodad stories like that. The closest I probably come to that wasn't like, it was the purpose of the gig, but the crew was tasked with go out, take this cargo sub for me and bring it home. And they get on board the sub out in the middle of this storm in the Pacific, board it, and they come to learn the thing is piloted by an AI. And they have to negotiate with this AI the whole time they're in there so it doesn't kill them. Until their tech can get to the forward bulkhead where its controls were located. And it was wild. It was so fun to watch them work their way through that puzzle. Because it's like, in the middle of this, they're negotiating and things are going really, really well. What do we know in Cyberpunk about things that are going really well? They usually don't stay that way very long. So what happens? Well, the corporation that they were also there with, essentially, that was also on top of the site the same time they were, trying to claim ownership of it, they get into the mix. And they decide, we're going in. After this crew has already announced, like, this is ours, back up. And so what started as a very good negotiation with the computer to stand down and give them access rapidly turns into the computer trying to kill everyone on both sides of this conflict because the other side was too stupid to realize shooting inside the sub is a bad idea. I was also tracking the hit points of the sub. I think they were less than 20 hit points from rupturing the hull.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Oh.
It was funny. Every time a shot missed, I'm like, oh, but could you please roll me the damage anyway? Like, why am I rolling the damage? Just don't worry about it. Just roll me the damage. They're like, I don't like this. Emmerron's tracking shit. Why is Emmerron tracking shit? So I had some fun with that.
I mean, I've had it where, a certain grenade-happy person in one of my parties decided that, popping grenades in a crumbling old combat zone building was a great idea. It's like, okay, well, roll me a d10. Why? Roll me a d10.
Just roll it.
Why? Roll me a d10. And he rolled a 1. So, hey, the floor gives out from under you. But I threw the grenade over there. Yeah, you threw it inside a crumbling building. Down you go.
As a great man once told me, it's all connected. And so, yeah, you're going to go screaming to the bottom. Have fun.
All right. Q&A time?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. But yeah, guys, as we close the second topic here, if you have any funny stories that you'd like us to feature or things like that, if we can, we would love to feature them. So put them in the comments, both here here in YouTube and on Spotify. Or, if you fill us in on chat or at our email, wireheadspod@googlegroups.com, we will feature that maybe on a future episode, because I would love to hear some of your crazy stories as well, because I always enjoy the
absolutely
unhinged tabletop shit. But yeah, with that said and out of the way, let's go.
Unhinged, not horror stories. That goes to r/RPG horror or something like that.
Yeah.
All right,
Like
so Q and
horror
A.
stories. Like we may do a separate thing talking about them, but I prefer to talk about the things that are good in the community. I don't like focusing on the negative quite as much. It's not as easy to talk about, especially if you're like trying to caveat your way around like the heart of a reason for the horror story, because like I don't like hurting people's feelings unnecessarily, and if you haven't wronged me directly, then like unless you're a real ass, then like, you know, then I might celebrate some of the bad things that happen, but it's not something I like doing. I like focusing on the positives far more. But yeah, let me find my way to the Q&A section here.
That one was literally a topic of the day. So we got three questions. Or 5 questions.
Yeah. Oh, this first one's awesome. And I can tell you how it works because I've actually run for a edge runner that did this. So the first question is, how can a streamer be an edge runner? The answer, you are either a media or a rocker boy at the start that then takes ranks in the other as the game progresses. That is how you do that. Because the media covers the videography elements of that, especially if you want to cover anything like in particular that has more substance to it. Otherwise, you can just be a rocker boy. Pure rocker boy can be a streamer. If you're just one of those entertainment streamers, 100% you could just be a rocker boy. That's like rocker boy to a T. You have an audience with fans who will do things on your behalf. Imagine your favorite streamer. And imagine the army of people that would do things if asked by that streamer. You know, imagine just think of all the scams people get away with by saying, "Hey, I'm Mr. Beast and you want $1,000.
Oh gosh.
Need I say more? Like,
would you like a jar of my bathwater? Look, I'm just saying it was a good business move, but still weird.
we live in a society that is not at all different from cyberpunk. Like,
We just don't get all the cool shit.
we just don't have the street slang, and that's slowly being fixed thanks to 2077. So, so yeah.
I suppose like looking at like literally the name of like the Rocker Boy media combo in collecting the random is the influencer.
Yep.
Are you a performer, or are you a reporter, or are you both? Digging up dirt, putting it all together, and creating evocative and provocative garden vids that, you know, turn dirt into art and pierces the soul and stirs up the crowds. Maybe you're one of those that you like to stir up a little bit of controversy. You're all about finding just the scraping up the bottom, like what's at the bottom of the barrel, and just being like, yo, hey, we're going into the combat zone at 3 a.m. What could possibly go wrong? You know, insert clickbait thumbnail, shit like that.
I sneak into an abandoned Arasaka facility in the combat zone at 3 a.m. Real terrifying. Yeah, that is.
You know, just taking videos at this executive cemetery. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
And then you got the documentarian, which is media with some ranks of rocker boy, which is you don't just report on your subject, you document it from all angles and edit it together with you as the narrator, both to entertain and inform the people.
Yeah.
So, you know, very much, you know, you're kind of more along the lines of like the History Channel or the Discovery Channel. Or I actually, never mind, those don't really do much on documentaries anyway.
The better comparison is like there's a ton of video essayists on YouTube. H Bomber Guy is like a fantastic example of this. Like, here's a man who releases a video once every year just about, but each time he does, it's like multiple hours long, got like some high production values in terms of the editing, the videography. That is what that begins to look like. Now, but that's why I say, if all you're doing is streaming for entertainment, like you're just like a dare I say, a Night City, it's terrifying what this could look like, but a prank YouTuber or something like that, right? You could just be a rocker boy. If your goal is less to inform and more to entertain, it is a rocker boy that you're probably playing.
Shooting my best friend prank gone wrong.
Yeah, we live in a hellscape. Anyway,
gunbar pistol blows up.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That would be the best outcome.
Oh God, I thought you were referring to something much more morbid. Anyway.
Wait, what? Oh, are we talking about the mall incident?
No, I was talking about the Deagle versus a phone book incident. Remember that one?
Oh, that one. Oh, yeah. No.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. So that's why we're not, for our own sanity, we're not going to go deep into that. But if you know, you know.
But yeah, so yes, you could be an edge runner and a streamer, and something that would be great is get an observer drone.
Yep. Also,
have that follow you around.
Three's a Crowd Games. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. So
the leader of that one, that's the guy that got me into TTRPGs to begin with.
Hell yeah. Okay, so it's coming full circle. Welcome. But yeah, that's how a streamer becomes an edge runner. You take Rocker Boy as your role, basically. I'd say that's, especially if we're just talking streamer as an entertainer, you take Rocker Boy as a role. And for your instrument, you take video camera, basically. That'd be what you do. So next, how do we steal high dollar, I'm going to presume Eurodollar items? Well.
Okay. Ooh.
Step 1, plan a lot. Step 2, remove the trackers. Step 3 is unknowable, and step 4 is profit. For the less memey response to that, focus on what Diamond's about to say.
I think knowing who this is, if my guess is right, from the anonymous questions I get from time to time, the high dollar items. So I think we're talking, the luxuries and super luxury items. Sometimes it really depends on what your crew is, because sometimes conning the hell out of someone is a really easy way to steal it. And then you just gotta deal with the aftermath, or go for a smash and grab. But if we're talking like high dollar, like don't scratch this, like an AV9, make that shit hard to get for your players. Make them actually have to fucking work for it. Whether it be they have to, pull off the con like perfectly.
Can I tell the story about the time my crew decided to steal an AV9 that I'm a player on, to be clear? This is not a table I ran. It's a table I'm running with.
Sure.
So, we are getting a gig. And the gig involves a corporation. I won't say which, because again, this was our run through the Tales of the Red campaign. So I am going to avoid talking too specifically about this, but bottom line is this. My GM has painted this other guy and his family as some grade A assholes. We're done working with them. We're very tired of them at this point. And this guy said the one stupid thing that would get us to never ever want to do anything he says ever again, which is that at the other side of the mission that we're about to run, we couldn't say fucking anything about it. And part of the reason we were even there to begin with is because we've been framed. Our reputations are on the line. And we're like, well, we need to publish it. Like, without that, how are we ever going to get a reputation back? And he's like, his response could be summed up as, bro, trust me, I'm important. That did not land with us at all. We were not having that shit. So cue a firefight between the chromed out motherfucker behind us and his whole security detail that only gets bigger by the round as the NCPD joins in. So, what do you do when you're pinned in to some rich dude's penthouse apartment? Well, you go to his rooftop and take his AV9, of course. And at this point, by the time we get to this, right, my character alone has finished killing this guy after our media nearly kills him, and then goes down to a tech upgraded Perseus. So 10,000 Eddie gun. This Perseus is ROF2 very heavy pistol firing AP rounds every single turn. And he mag dumps our media, and he needed to mag dump him to get him into death saves. I'm our med tech. So I, of course, I'm like, okay, well, shit, I'm going to save the media now that this corporate asshole's been dealt with. We're going to save him. And in so doing, then I'm like, okay, I'm going to cover our escape. I need you to, like, because we have our tech, like, tech, I need you to open the door to the roof here. Because we found like an emergency escape hatch to the roof. So we're like, okay, you're going to do that. I'm going to hold off the cops because I'm the healthiest of all of us and I've got speed heal. So I am literally throwing incendiary grenades down a hallway to keep the cops from coming up. Burning several alive in the process. Beautiful work of art.
Bacon.
Yeah. So we get into the AV9. We take it. We fly. We've got all of us on board. It's great. Fairy tale ending, you might say. And then we get a call that it's not a call so much as we get shot at because C-SWAT's on the scene and C-SWAT's taking pot shots at our AV. And I'm like, fantastic. We evade them. We get away. We get to some small shipping yard to repair our AV that got, as you might imagine, quite heavily damaged in the firefight before we go to deal with the real problem here. So here's the things we didn't do right. We didn't deal with a tracker right away. We didn't have the time to, really. We had a ton of heat on our tail still. We should have scuttled off into the middle of nowhere and laid low for weeks after trying something like this. We didn't. We pushed the envelope. And so after all of that, we land in a shipping yard in South Night City after stealing this from Pacifica. And we start repairing the AV so it can become airborne again. And then Max Tech drops on our asses. And suddenly it's Max Hammerman giving us the gig instead of the exec we just killed. And that's how that went. And that's how our GM looped us back into the content we were supposed to be doing all along. So yeah, if you steal high dollar value items, number one, they're going to come for you. Number two, yes, that means all of them. The entire city is coming for you. So plan. Don't do it on a whim. Don't do what I did. It gets bad very fast.
And also, unless you absolutely have to, do it in a way that's going to be nice and quiet. Just simply lift the keys out of their pocket, get in their car, and drive the fuck away after you get the tracker out of there.
After you get the tracker. That's very important. Do not leave a tracker installed. They will come for your ass.
Do what I do and get a fucking jammer installed on your in your audio suite. Just knock that shit out.
Could work. Yeah. Depends. How good's your jammer versus their ability to remain unjammed?
Hey, it's got to be the DV13 electronic security tech.
Introducing a tech upgraded demon that can use its combat number to beat that.
So, and also, like, for me, I personally, I enjoy a good con. Not so much, sneak in, steal, and leave. No, I like looking this guy right in the face, smiling, shaking his hand, while just, full on just knowing that my buddies are going, grabbing the stuff that we need, and I'm selling them snake oil while we leave with all the high dollar shit out the back door. I mean, fuck, that's how we got like one of the most expensive gold-plated agents out of Ziggurat.
Yeah, I was like, cue my party.
Eddies.
Cue my party stealing some very, very expensive items out from under an auction where they poisoned everyone with laxatives. They didn't have to fire a single bullet. Their med tech got the idea to poison everyone with laxatives. That was fun. That was a lot of fun. So yeah, if you're gonna heist things, make sure you're smart about it. That's kind of the biggest thing. Make sure that you are thinking early and often about everything that could go wrong. GMs, plan for one additional thing to go wrong than your party is prepared for, and see how they react. And it's really fun. Manic Meat adds a question here that I think could also be helpful in this scenario. How do you balance your game? I'm finding it hard to balance combat. Some guys I think will be tougher, or will be trouble, get bulldozed. And others that I think aren't at all special end up almost wiping one or more members. So, the first part of this is that combat can be very swingy. A critical can change things in a blink. Like, it literally is like, you got crit, okay, now the battle's on the back foot. That's all it takes. One crit, right? So sometimes your players will be the ones dealing that crit and be like, okay, cool. We just hit the guy across the room from us. And it's fine. Like, now they can't even pose a serious threat to us. On the other hand, the enemy was the one dealing the crit. Then suddenly the party's worried about, oh God, how are we going to get out of here? Everyone's still breathing, right? Using Night City, Gang, and Court Mook Pack mostly, but none of the homebrew abilities, if you've ever checked that out. I've never checked the homebrew. I don't use a lot of homebrew in my games. I prefer to run my games pretty close to rules as written as much as I can. So I don't deal with a ton of that. But I would encourage you, look at how Danger Gal Dossier is outfitted for what they classify as like a lieutenant, a mook, a mini boss, a boss. Like, have a look at that. See how they've kind of gotten creative with some of that. Because that helped me kind of better realize and write encounters once I started digging through that. Just because it opened my eyes to several possibilities that I was like, oh, I never thought to do that.
Also, there are going to be times where, the party's going to encounter, smaller fish that, won't be able to do much against you. Or won't be able to do much against them. And it happens. But also remember, take advantage of, if people have done their research on the party. Oh, this party really does well at mid-range. Drop a melee strike team on them. All it takes is some really, really froggy tiger claws to get up in the skirmish, and then suddenly, coming in on motorcycles, swinging blades at the party.
Yeah, I will say this right away too. Melee combatants hit way harder than ranged ones do most of the time.
Absolutely.
So if you're feeling like certain things are overpowered and certain are underpowered, my advice would be to go back and think about how were those enemies utilized? What kind of weapons were they using? Because if they're melee combatants will hit way, way, way harder because there is a requirement on the player's side that they be good at evading someone who has a comparable weapon base to their evasion. And if they're not good at it, they will get mollywopped because they're basically getting hit for free the whole time. Even 1 or 2 points difference is like a massive at melee combat. Whereas with ranged, it's more about, can they hit the DV thresholds? Because if they can hit the DV thresholds, that kind of tells the players outright, like, okay, well, like, whether they should or shouldn't try to dodge bullets if that's an option open to them. And so, like, sometimes what I've found helps my gunmen survive longer, for example, is unless they're using a pistol as kind of their primary weapon of choice, they're using rifles, put them far back, get them out of the heart of the combat. And then the only way that they can get touched is if your party also has a long-range gunman. And if they don't, they're going to create a new problem for the party. And that's the main way you kind of think about it. As far as balance goes, if you do start doing some of that stuff, the balance iterated in the book makes more sense. The one thing I would add on top, though, is ensure that you've actually read and understand what it means when someone is hardened, right? Make sure that your party does qualify or doesn't qualify for the usage of hardened enemies. Because if they do qualify for it and you're not using them, that could be your problem. Or vice versa. If they aren't and you are, could also be a problem for them to, you know, be dealing with something that's way, way stronger than them. Yeah. That would be my recommendation, though. Start looking through Danger Gal Dossier. Look at how those are balanced. Use maybe the Mook generation rules in the back there, too, especially. Or also refine your mooks if you're getting them from somewhere else using those rules.
Also, remember, you know, some of these booster gangers, if they can afford, a standard quality, very heavy pistol, they can afford something like a Gun Martin Gauge.
Yep.
Just want to throw that out there. One of my parties learned the hard way not to underestimate, you know, some gangs that might be a little bit better equipped. Because, you know, take, for example, 6th Street. There is no reason a 6th Street ganger wouldn't know how to auto-fire. You know, right. maybe it's a base 10, but, you know, they can fire. Whereas, you know, maybe a Scav, on the other hand, might do much better in melee combat.
Yeah, they're dealing with knives and shitty pistols, pretty much, for Scavs.
So... at the end of the day, get a little creative, because also suppressive fire is a nasty tool to keep it, you know, up your sleeve. And also traps. If the party is coming to the enemy, set traps. Because I like to leave, you know, some nice little you know, door explosives around. You know, just step out tripwire and then suddenly, boom, a bunch of rusty nails and screws and other things hit your party. Yes, as we said in my hood class, yeah.
Prepper Jack just brought up, turn the corner, 10 gangers with 100 Eddie rocket launchers. And we literally were talking about this in Start Playing today before the episode, which is, yeah, the rocket launcher in a guitar case, a hood classic, my favorite.
Well, the thing is, though, is you don't want to put that many people in close proximity with engages, though. That's because all it takes is someone rolling a 1. That's all it takes.
See, the crazy thing is, if any of your players are melee combatants, that's dangerous for them, too.
Mm-hmm.
It's spooky. It's really spooky how Gun Martin Gauge can fuck things up. Yeah. It's a fun one. I love the Gun Martin Gauge. It's one of my favorite pieces of hardware from fucking Black Chrome. Such a good gun.
I don't know what scares me more, the Gun Martin Gauge or the Tommy Knocker. The Tommy Knocker just, I don't know, there's something about it that scares me.
The Tommy Knocker is spooky. I would say the Engage scares me more. Nothing like a nomad with nothing to lose and an Engage on their shoulder. That is a scary ass prospect. So let me see, looking at the time. Okay, we've still got some time left. So the next question we have is how to use morbid humor in the game. So this is going to vary because I think morbid humor in general is very contextual, right? And it's also very dependent on your audience. I make morbid humor less in mixed company, I find, and more when I'm with people that I already know pretty well and trust. Just because it could be seen deeply offensive if taken out of context or put in the wrong context or what have you, right? So I don't know. I've got some tips, but Diamond, I'm curious because you're better at using safety tools in a lot of ways and have more experience with it. So I'm curious what you think about this one.
I do feel that maybe comedy in Cyberpunk might need to be actually a topic we talk about. So I'm going to put that down in my notes here. Okay. But morbid humor is one of those that, like mentioned, the problem with morbid humor is you have to make sure you're in the right company for it, and not only that is you got to make sure that you aren't crossing certain boundaries with it. Now, like for example, today we found a head in a jar. Yeah. We happen to know whose head is in this jar. Not that we know him personally, but we just know the guy is related to a major TV celebrity. And I just referred to the guy by his first name. It's like, oh yeah, I'm taking this guy home. And everyone was like, don't say that. And it's just like, it's funny. Yeah. However, yeah. Don't try to force morbid humor in Cyberpunk. That just makes you look like a fucking asshat.
Or it looks, you can come off as like very, very weird in the worst way, would be what I'm saying. I would say morbid humor is one of those things where it's like, if you're channeling it through a character, like if it's a character's personality trait, and that's why you're asking. For NPCs, it can be very contextualized, I think. Gatspot, thank you for the sub. I appreciate that. For the context of like an NPC, again, it's going to be very contextual, but it's like if it's a coroner making jokes about a corpse they've got on the slab or whatever, that's going to be very different than a ganger making jokes about some dude that just shot in the alley back behind the bar that you're in. Mm-hmm. That's going to land very differently. So I would say if the cause for the joke in the first place is psychotic, make sure that the person delivering it's a little psychotic, because then you at least have that to lean against with them, right? The other side of that coin is if they're a professional, I think every professional that deals with or is close to death near constantly, all of them have jokes that line up well. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Reminds me, one of my professors was talking about, the cops were out at the scene of a drowning that happened at a pool, and the EMTs arrived, and they asked, all right, so what happened? And one of the cops was just like, I don't know how else to tell you this, but that's not a fish. And it's like, oh no. Yeah. You come across stuff like that. Hell, I mean, you see it from time to time again. In other cases, but I do feel that maybe comedy in Cyberpunk should be a topic for another day. Yeah, I need some time to really kind of gather my thoughts on this one as well.
Yeah, because morbid humor is really tricky in general, because it like I said, it straddles the line between the offensive and the amusing. And what that line is going to be very different for every single person. If unlike Diamond and I, you are not a streamer that does this for some of our living on twitch.tv, then this is going to stand a little different for you than it does for people like us, because like we have to be mindful not only of how it's going to land with our players, but our audiences, which is why typically, unless I'm doing it like a start playing game where it's like a little more of a closed loop and I have a better read on everyone's sensibilities, I will not typically go too deep into that. Usually it'll be my players that bring morbid humor to the table if someone does, right? Because I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I don't want to disrespect somebody, especially when it comes to like the topics morbid humor is usually used for. Those can be like deeply personal kinds of things that I generally don't want to step on. I don't want to be that guy, right? Let's see, time. Okay. Think we have time for, well, what do you think? I think we've probably got enough time for these next two. Both of these are pretty.
I mean, the first one's gonna be probably an easy yes or no, and then the second one.
Yeah, I didn't quite catch that. Yeah, the full context of that. Yeah. So, a series talking about street stories. We might be able to. Yes. I will probably hold off doing that for a while still, at least myself. Because I am currently running that as a start playing thing. So I don't want to poison the well. I want to make sure that those players get an authentic first look at things when they do.
I think maybe this might be something we could probably pin for maybe after Tales of the Red, Hope Reborn comes out, or maybe later in the year.
Yeah, like either later this year or sometime early next.
Or definitely next year.
Yeah, so that's like it just gets tricky. It gets tricky talking about street stories in like a more unless by street stories you don't mean the book and instead mean like street level stories, which get referenced quite often by our
The question was in regards to the book Tales of the Red Street Stories.
Got it. Okay.
So that would be like what, a 10 episode series with we could make that like 10 episodes like much later on, because when did the book come out? When did the book come out?
2021, I think.
So I'd say let's wait till next year, so that way it's been out for about 4 years.
Yeah, because the last thing that I want to do, just so our audience understands my thought process on this, is the last thing I really want to do is talk about something that you haven't had the chance to experience yourselves yet, if you're a player. Because going into some of those adventures blind is what made them so impactful for me when I played them. And I'm so glad that up to the very, very end, I never spoiled myself on any of that, despite the fact that I'm a full-time GM. So, like, I was very careful not to do that to myself. Because, yeah, I wanted to experience them. Full send. And I would encourage all of you to do the same. I think that those stories are best experienced for the first time fresh. I really think that you don't want to have any of that spoiled for you if you can help it. But yeah, that's my only impediment to doing that.
And maybe it's not like Wireheads podcast, but maybe we do like a side series possibly.
Yeah, because like
next year.
Yeah, because I think that like, especially we could talk with Phantom too, because he was my GM to run me through all of that. So we could even see if we could get him involved too with that, because I know he has some thoughts about the book as well. Get one extra voice. But yeah, if we do something about that, I don't know that I'd want to do it here on the podcast, just because I want to make sure this remains an open forum for all of us to discuss the game in a way that doesn't spoil new players and ruin their experience on some of it.
So, yes, series, but not in the Wireheads podcast. Most likely it'll be its own like side series of stories that will be out there. And I think like if we did it in 2025, it would be like well along. It would be like saying Darth Vader is Luke's father at this point.
Right. I mean, yes and no, because on one hand, TTRPGs are so deeply personal that it'd still be like, think of how old the Curse of Strahd is and how involved a campaign going through that is. And if you had the Curse of Strahd spoiled for you by someone, even 10 years later,
it's kind of oof.
Doesn't matter, because it's like every table's going to run it a little differently, and every table's going to make different choices. And if you know the way a pathway will end, those choices are going to feel different to you.
So I guess maybe in that case, then, make this a side series. We put, a big old spoiler sign over it. So that way, if somehow actually, there's always new people coming to the game. But if you have played Cyberpunk Red since like the Jumpstart kit or the year 2020, and you still have somehow not managed to get to Tales of the Red Street stories at some point here in the year 2024.
Yeah. Or 25 if that's when we get to it. Either way, though, I want to present it in that light of like, okay, cool. To the people who want to hear us discuss it, or GMs, if you're thinking about running it and want input before you pick it up, that is totally valid. And I completely, empathize with that. And that's so I wouldn't want to deny you that opportunity and that information in favor of caution for not making that video. But like I said, probably just not here on the in the context of the podcast proper. We'll probably try and get something else worked out to bring that to you. Because Diamond and I, shocker, we talk and are friends outside just the podcast. So we can figure something out, I'm sure. But yeah, last one. Weirdest food item you produced for players.
Yes. Might I introduce to you one of my absolute favorites, hot dogs. Now it's HAWTDAWGS or Z. Hot dogs is going to be kind of a central focus of an upcoming Scream Sheet gig I have, but it is made. These are made from the leftovers of real food, like basically whatever got done in the process of making the real food for the executives. This guy happens to get on the back end, and the gig's gonna be you guys gotta go get those supplies for him to make these hot dogs. But the problem is, anytime you get it, there's other fillers in it that might make it taste a little strange. So, like in the case of a certain meatball sub, Emmerron, that was discovered earlier today, that it tasted like
kind of tastes like pancake, but it's kind of good.
I've offered up a batch of hot dogs, and it's like, oh hey, these aren't bad. Next week, why do they taste like soy? Like, why is there tofu in here? It's like, gotta make it somehow.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, that's my weird offering. Then there's also Curious Burritos, which is Qdoba. But the Curious Burrito, for $10, they decide what gets packed in your burrito.
Yeah.
And the rest of your table decides what gets in there.
That's fun. God, see, the thing is, I don't have like a massive focus on food in the games I run, so I'm really having to think about this and like go back through. Man, like, have I done anything really, really weird? Mostly what I come back to are the names of places. So
what you got?
I mean, I told you guys in session today about my favorite So my favorite name for like a noodle joint that by now just is all over the city in the same way that you can see Tom's Diner is in 2077. We have Good Nudes, which is spelled Noods. It is a ramen bar. And it is not salacious in any way outside the name. The name is just the marketing stunt. Inside, it's just good noodles. But that's my favorite one to bring up. And then, what was the burger joint I used for 1 year? Hold on. I'll find this because it's a gig I ran as like a Halloween game for several of my friends a few years back. And if I find this, I'll be able to say it.
Is this a spoof on Zombie Burger by chance?
No, it's
or
not.
I might be thinking of a different table.
No, I just need to find this because goddamn, I ran this so long ago. Where was
the
this?
Taco Bell line of kibble? Well, that better give me indigestion, or I want fucking refund manic meat.
Halloween one shot. Here we go. Found the document. So,
oh boy.
Yeah. So this is one that I should work back up into like a properly published scream sheet at some point. I was proud of this one. Basically involves a chemical corporation that is working with Biotechnica leaking something into a drug house, and that drug house becomes a little house of horror. It's a lot of fun. But let me see. Oh. So no. Okay. So Good Nudes was an evolution of this one I did, which was Send Nudes, which is again Noods. Not salacious at all. However, the side hustle they got going on is maybe not so great. Which is why this was featured in this adventure. It had some undercurrents of trafficking and stuff involved in it. So it was like there were some busting of criminal smuggling rings and things like that going on in this game. The cheeseburger place was just called Chubger. Chubgr. Now, there's a story behind this. I forget where we went for dinner one night, but it was me, my brother, and one of our friends, and we got our receipt. Instead of cheeseburger, they abbreviated to Chubger. And I'm like, oh, that's a cutesy little name. And it's got all the features of like, Tumblr, some of those, the really short, like we removed the vowel. So it's cute kind of names. So I'm like, Chubger is a good name. Yeah, that's probably nothing like weird about what's in the meals or whatever, but the names, I always have a fascination with marketing and stuff like that. It's technically what my degree is kind of in, is thinking about things with like a marketing lens. So like names are always really fun to play with for me. So yeah, that's what I have to add to that discussion, even if it's maybe not quite what you were after.
Gosh, I gotta find wherever the hell I put those weird flavors you all came up with. Gosh, yeah, no, I was sitting here with chat, shooting the shit over like, weird, flavors for kibble, and for the life of me, I cannot seem to find it. Yeah, but
I remember the table though. Peach Mangosteen, I believe, was one of them.
Yeah, there was that one.
I think it was one of my contributions too. Was Peach Mangosteen.
But I know somebody put a tequila flavored one in there. There's a 1d10 chance you might find it. So yeah, there's always just nice little weird nuggets of things that you can find in Night City.
Yeah. There's a couple, by the way, for those of you who are not aware of these. because I know there's plenty of homebrew centered around roll tables like these, but Cyberpunk made some of their own roll tables. So if you have the data pack, there's a ton of roll tables in there. Even in the core rulebook, though, there is, I need to find the page number, but there is a page number for a random vendit items table. So you can produce a vendit that has stuff in it. I'm pretty sure it's just in the...
It's core rulebook.
Yeah, but I think it's in the new street economy chapter. I was thinking like which chapter it would be in.
New street economy, where you get it, and one of the weird things is just like I think it's like shredded cabbage.
Yeah, so 331 has a roll table of what's in the nearest vendit. 332 has Bodega's Clientele. Both of those are roll tables. Both of those can be very helpful if you need something. Excuse me. And then I think there's a Kibble Flavors one in collecting the random, if I remember right.
Yep, there is.
And then, of course, the data pack is one of my favorite roll tables in anything Cyberpunk, which is things you find in a dead Choom's subdermal pocket.
Ah, yes.
Which are fucking hilarious. My favorite item is a body lotto ticket that would have won if this guy didn't bite the bullet, and it's like, oh fuck.
All right. Well, I think we've actually covered quite a bit today, but I think we'll cover comedy in a later episode.
Yeah, Nyla had one other thing. What's a topic that isn't talked about enough in the Cyberpunk Red community? Nyla, is that a lead into you suggesting something? Or is that a thing you want us to talk about? Is that the question? Just so I'm clear on that.
Actually, Valkyrie and I were talking about this, and we wouldn't be surprised if this comes up in the revealed to be coming at some point. Where the fuck are the Raph and Shib? Like, we don't really get a lot of information on them or the Jodes or like any of the nomads. We know that nomads are important to the time of the Red. We don't know a lot about our mobile benefactors.
We've been told Rusted Chrome should start answering some of that because that's the whole purpose of the book. Is it's a gearbook, sure, but it's also James had mentioned in the panel that like it was going to be about nomads and edge runners and how the economy works between those two groups. And I think that'll go a long way. Between that and the Night City source book that we got coming up, both of those should be very helpful for that. And Nyla, though, I'm going to add this as a question that we use next time. Did my music just stop on me? No, it didn't. Okay. It's what is a topic that isn't talked about enough in the Cyberpunk Red community? Basically, what do we think is like an underrated topic?
I really gotta think on this one.
Or what's a topic that isn't discussed enough in the Cyberpunk Red community? Okay, cool. I've got it noted in there so we can think about that one. That's a good one to leave us on because I don't know that I have a great answer for that coming up. So I'll delete the rest of that. And then, yeah, we'll just make sure that we have topics noted here for... because you already noted humor in Cyberpunk?
Yep, I put it under my topics sheet.
Cool.
Honestly, This might be a good question to ask the Reddit.
Yeah, that might be a good one to put to a vote, and then we can talk about it on the podcast.
But
and Nyla just had a revelation. One more. Nyla, you get one more. Then we're closing this place down for real. Watch Barry for the kind of humor I want in my Cyberpunk game. I know Barry. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that is the way that humor works in Cyberpunk. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Little dark, little unhinged, still very funny. Yeah. But we'll talk about it. That's an episode topic that we're working on. We're cooking that. So but yeah, I think that's gonna be it then, Diamond, unless you have anything left to add on your end of the world.
I think I'm good here.
Sick. All right. Well, everybody, that is going to do it for us this week. If you are watching us on YouTube, again, make sure you've watched part 1, which is linked down below in the description. It's going to be over on Diamond's channel. And she will be able to educate you, along with me, on how Exix and Lawman fit into the Cyberpunk game at your table. But from both of us here at Wireheads, I hope you have a wonderful morning, evening, or afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Stay healthy, stay safe, and until next week, guys, peace.